Mitch McGovern is next up. Now, Mitch played the 16 games in 2019, kicked us 22 goals, and he was obviously one of the big name recruits going into season 2019, and unfortunately suffered that non-displaced fracture in his back after a pretty big fall in the Christmas session at the end of 2018. I was actually there for that, and it was really disappointing, and it really just put him behind the eight ball from the start of the season, and he never quite caught up until he had that week off in the cage with Andrew Russell. But I think overall, at the end of the day, considering what we paid him salary-wise, and obviously with that comes expectation, and what we got in terms of the output, it just didn't match up. We know that the injury was a concern for him. Prior to that, and I had seen some reports about how he was moving before that. He was flying at the footy, moving really well, and he seems to really have that now. And if there's one thing that he's definitely improved, very much like Matt Kennedy has, it's his physical conditioning. The guy is clearly a lot more defined. Just looking at his arms, first and foremost, he looks a lot leaner. He has that really crash and bash type game style. He flies through the air. He has a little bit of that. He has that X factor about him. He is a big moment type guy. I don't know if he's a guy that's going to be, ultra consistent in getting those 15, 16, 17 possessions as a roaming forward. But he's a guy that has a moment or two or three in a quarter, can kick 2 or 3 goals in a quarter very easily. And that's just always been the type of game that he's played, even at the Crows. Now, for me, going into 2020, it's actually quite a monumental year for someone like Mitch McGovern, because we know the reports about Harry Mackay. We've just spoken about him, how he's obviously injured and he hasn't done any of the full training just yet. We know Charlie hasn't done any of the full training just yet. So all of a sudden, the forward line really opens up now for someone like a Mitch McGovern, and obviously a Levi Casbolt will be there as well next to him. And for me, he's going to have to go from someone who we recruited to probably be that third string forward to really being the focal point of the forward line, because I think that if Levi's a forward, he's probably going to help out in the ruck as opposed to what Mitch would. And for that reason, I think this is a season where we're really going to need to get something like 35, 40 goals from him this year, like something like a 2-goal average per game, because I just don't know where Harry and Charlie are at the time of filming this video. And I think he's got the capabilities of it. He's entering the prime of his life. He's 25 years old now. He's played in big games for Adelaide. He's had injury history throughout his entire career, whether that's been hamstring or whatnot. But I think the soft tissue injuries in his past have been due to the fact that he's probably hasn't been in the physical condition that what he is right now. So I'm looking at him, and really, you never want to be relying on too few, but he's one that I'm personally really relying on to get this forward line going, because we don't know what's going to happen with the other 2 young key forwards on our list. And obviously, we got Mitch McGovern in as one of our big recruits. When you pay big money for a big recruit, they're going to have to perform on the field. And, I think with Mitch, I don't know if he's completely won over the Carlton fans just yet. It won't take much. All it'll take is just a 2 or 3 week patch where he just kicks 3 or 4 goals in a few games and really lights the place on fire. He actually had a pretty good game against St Kilda late in 2019. He kicked the 3 goals that game. And, he had a few moments, took a big grab. He looked to be moving really freely. He had that moment where he ran into the open goal and grabbed his jersey. And, those sorts of things really build up equity with the fans. And, he's someone that I've always really enjoyed watching, even when he was a Crow. But, yeah, it's a big year for him. It's a year of really proving himself amongst the fans, I think. I think he's probably earned the respect of his teammates on the inside. And, he's going to be a lot more comfortable now. He's obviously had a year to spend in Melbourne, living here. All of the off-field things should be taken care of. It's now about performance for him. Like I said earlier in the video, 35 to 40 goals. We just need it, particularly if Charlie and Harry miss. I want to see him be a bit more of an on-field leader. I think the underrated recruitment of Mitch McGovern, the underrated aspect of his recruitment is now that when you combine him and Eddie Betts together, all of a sudden you have two of the two of the key cogs in that Adelaide forward line. Now, obviously, they work with Teague. They know the way he likes to move the ball. They know where they need to position themselves. And I think that's going to work pretty well for both our forward line and for Mitch as well, because he's obviously worked well with Teague, understands how he wants the game to be played, understands where he needs to be, and I would expect him to get plenty of those goals just from being in the right position at the right time. And that's also something that David Teague has mentioned about Mitch, is that he's very selfless, and you might not see him kick bags of goals, but what the coaches see on the inside is that he's positioned himself to allow space for someone else to come and impact. And that's something that we as fans not always see. I definitely miss these things. I mean, the reality is we're just fans. We get to watch from a TV screen or at the games. We don't know the conversations on the inside. We don't know the particular roles that players are being asked to perform. So that's Mitch McGovern. Having said that, I mean, he's got to be a bit more than a role player for me this year, and I think he will. I think he'll up his game, and I'm really excited for him. I think it's going to be a real breakout year for him again, and really come into his own as a leader of this footy club. And hopefully, we can be talking about, a top 5 best and fairest finish for him in 2020. What about you? Where does Mitch McGovern's season play out, or how does Mitch McGovern's season play out for you? Let me know in the comments below.